Another project that we've been working on is actually helping our friends at Boss Shotshells with a new shotgun load that they have coming out. And the new load is called Boss Target, and there's another one coming out soon that's a game load. We can't tell you too much about that one, but the Boss Target loads were really fun to work on. And I'm a total nerd when it comes to shotgun shells, as well as bullets and ballistics and studying the gels and all those sorts of things. And what was really cool for me was, I'd grown up when you shot target loads, a lot of times it would be lead. Sometimes there were some non-toxic options, but it wasn't too common. And being able to dive in and see how these shells are developed and actually work with Brandon hands-on and see what goes into it, there were some really cool things that I wanted to share with people, because it seems as though online there's a lot of misinformation out there and people that just don't quite understand a steel load for target shells. So Boss Target, what's really cool about it is if you have 1 ounce of shot in a shotgun shell and it's steel, you're going to have substantially more pellets than you're going to have if it was lead. And the reason being is because steel is far less dense than lead. Therefore, you can put more pellets in to get to the 1 ounce mark. So what you're going to find is you're going to have fuller patterns. The other thing is, people shy away from steel because of like knockdown power. Like when we're talking about hunting upland or waterfowl, if you can hunt with bismuth or copper-plated bismuth or tungsten, you're going to have a lot more knockdown power downrange, because the metals are far more dense than lead, meaning they can hold their energy longer. It's the same thing of like, you can throw a golf ball a lot farther than you can a wiffle ball, right?
Yeah.
So that is kind of like the mentality behind it when it comes to, shooting ducks and that sort of thing. But when it comes to a clay, you can barely get to the target and touch it and it'll still break. You know what I mean? You're just trying to break clay. So really the main thing you're looking for is you want to have a really good pattern. And where steel excels is, number one, we went down to 7 shot. So for the target load for Boss. So the 7 shot, as far as like knockdown power, if you will, at distance, it's going to behave a lot like a 7.5 lead would as far as distance downrange breaking clays. So if you can hit, with your choke and your gun set up and you're shooting clays at 45 yards with lead, and that's like the distance you're willing to go, with 7.5s, if you go down to the 7s, you're going to be able to do the same with steel. So go ahead and clip that theory from yourself, but you're going to do it with more pellets. And the other thing is, that we were talking about choking it, how to choke these different shells with your, as far as choke tubes. And steel, you can tend to be a little bit more open than you would be with lead. And one of the reasons for that, too, is that steel is a lot harder than lead, so it's going to fly a lot more true. So when the pellets are going down range, they are not going to deform the same way that you're going to find that lead does. And when lead deforms, it causes more drifting because it's not a perfect ball anymore. So while it's shot out of the gun, it's going to drift more. It has slightly more density, but realistically, the 7.5s and 7s are going to perform the same anyways. But that deformation is going to cause more strays to go away and not be in your pattern. So with the steel, you're going to have more pellets in your pattern. And on top of that, you're going to have the same knockdown power downrange. And on top of that, all your pellets are going to be in your pattern. And like we were doing patterning videos when we were shooting their promos and stuff, like doing all the videos and stuff. Holy Hannah. I mean, you were having like no stray pellets. They were all on the paper. And like I said, might want to go a little bit more of an open choke, but you can hit anything on a 5 stand. You can pretty much do anything. And with any load, if you're going out past 50 yards, even with lead and stuff like that, things are going to get a little bit hairy.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
But for shooting 5 stands, shooting all those things and being able to do non-toxic, it's pretty cool, especially for those who are going to different areas where you actually have to use non-tox because you're just flinging clays and shooting them.
Yeah.
This obviously protects those people, but make no mistake about it, this is like a competition load. Now, steel, because it's harder, people worry about the fact that it's going to destroy their barrels. And as a lot of people know with duck loads, that's a fear. But that typically only happens with like 2s and BB shot and stuff like that. You're not going to find that happening with the 7s and 8s that Boss offers, because they do offer 8s as well. I talked about the 7s. They have 7s and 8s. That's not going to happen with those, but also the wad technology that we have at Boss is actually going to help protect your barrel because it's thicker. And so they added more material to it to protect the shot going through the barrel to protect your barrel. So that helps as well. And it's cool because the wads are made here in Michigan. The steel is sourced in the United States of America. They're doing everything right here. Everything's built here. It's like really cool to see a Michigan company thriving and coming out with this new product. And I thought it was going to be more expensive than it ended up being. And I think a lot of people too, like, you know, they used to be able to buy a box of Gun Club for like $8.99. It's just not the case anymore. So a lot of shells, you know, steel is going to be more than Boss because we're running about $15 a box, but it's going to be a lot more if you're going to look at other brands because we've got that direct to consumer model.
Well, even so, like growing up, a really common round we used was like the Remington 2 3/4, 7 or 8 shot. In comparison, now to Boss, now going non-toxic. So with Boss, you have non-toxic steel versus Remington. It's only $1 difference per box. So I mean, it's really comparable.
I think in the waterfowl industry, everyone has to use non-toxic. So they're like, yeah, use Boss. Like, cool. But then, like, if they have the opportunity to use lead, there's almost like this thing where people are like, they know people don't want them using lead, so they want to use lead because they know people don't want them to use lead.
Yeah.
And I mean, I sympathize with the fact that people should be able to do what they want, but the people that are complaining to Brandon about not producing lead shot for Boss, I think is a bit ridiculous because his whole thing is like, I won't do it to my employees. I know what it does and I won't do it to them because it would be easy.
Like the other element of that too is that what we've talked about is like, say you're doing a roast and you're doing a rabbit roast and it's full of lead and so you're just cooking lead into your food.
You know what's really funny too?
No one ever talks about that, but that's a little gnarly.
Dude, that gets me.
The diehards might say, yeah, do it.
No, they do. They do.
Yeah.
They do it. Their whole thing is like, well, never kill me before. And it's like, I get that.
And they love cigarettes.
But I want, of course I want cigarettes in my sandwich. What do I look like, a Mary? So what they'll actually do is the scientists did a study and they were like, how much lead shot does it take to like kill a bird? And what they were finding for like Tweety birds and stuff like that, or they did say a grouse, but I haven't seen the grouse study, but they're like, if they pick up one 6-shot pellet and put it in their crop, they're going to die.
That's crazy.
One lead 6-shot pellet. So I'm like, okay, if it's going to kill, and there's people, no, it won't. Well, they did it and they saw it, but regardless, I can't believe we're arguing if lead is healthy or not. We know it's toxic, but anyhow,
it's like masks.
Dude, it's crazy. To be clear, we don't like masks. Just the way you said it, I want to make sure that was clear. You can walk outside with a mask on and you can breathe when it's cold out and you see the air. Those particles are huge. Fire is small. Doesn't make any sense. Anyways, now we're going to get demonetized for this.
Yep.
Just don't say anything about 19 or anything like that.
Or 20. 20?
Yeah, or 20, 21 even. And yes, the certain people, it's 25. But anyhow, yeah, so the lead shot, the birds can consume it and kill them. So when you think about it, let's say you shot a rabbit and he's got 15 lead pellets in him because you're a great shot. You cook it in the crock pot and it's just soaking in there all the time. And maybe you spit some out. Maybe you don't. Maybe you swallow some of them. You can't convince me that's good. We're so close to the Flint water crisis. We know what happens when lead is in the water. Imagine if lead is also in your food. I just don't get why there's like such a hold on that. As far as rifle bullets go, I know that Nosler makes a really great copper bullet. They call it the E-tip. They don't really push it too much because they don't want people to think they're anti-lead either. But what's really great about copper bullets is they help you kind of punch above your weight. And I'll explain why. Lead bullets, when you shoot them, they deform, which is great. Like you want that mushrooming, but they also fragment a lot. And you might lose 15 to 20% of your shot in the penetration process, meaning it's going to fragment and spin off. Very, very normal. The thing is with the copper bullets is you won't have any loss. You'll have 100% retention through the animal. And the problem with that historically was it used to just punch a hole in the animal and it wouldn't expand properly. And because it wouldn't expand properly, a lot of times you just punch that little hole and the animal would get away or it would take a long time to die. Now Nosler has figured out how to make the E-tip like, mushroom perfectly, create absolute devastation, which we've done a video on showing people what that looks like, but absolutely destroyed them. And it had 100% retention through it. So think about that. If you're taking a young deer hunter hunting and he's going to try and shoot a big buck, but all he's got is a 243. Yes, the 243 is big enough. Relax. But a 243 is a little bit underpowered, you could say. A little bit. Like it doesn't have a ton of HUSPA. You better hit the vitals, right? Not that you shouldn't hit the vitals every time. I know, everyone relax. But
You can tell we've been.
I know.
clearly
I've been through that. I've been beaten enough on this.
I like that in the last 30 seconds, you've made one very simple statement, and yet we're going to get crap from both sides on that one topic.
I know, but I'm fixing it. I'm fixing them with truth, logic, and common sense. But anyhow, if you have a bullet that holds 100% retention, then it's almost like they're shooting a bigger bullet.
Mhm.
So it helps them with a little bit more knockdown power, with a little bit more bullet weight to help them punch above their weight a little bit. And that's what's so great about the E-tips from Nosler, and also copper in general. And copper is a pretty incredible metal. It's obviously not quite as dense as lead, but with 100% retention and holding its shape, it's going to be really interesting to see what copper can do as we continue to move forward with other products at Boss. So
it's a lot like the recipe thing we just talked about, where it's like, who cares what the bullet is made of? You should care about how it works and whether it performs when you use it. But no, lead's good enough for me because it was good enough for my daddy. And it's good enough for me, and you can't tell me otherwise.
the good news is now you're going to be the target. And I also sympathize with the fact that people feel as though, like, for instance, the waterfowl stuff. We've talked about this before when they made using lead shot illegal. People in the waterfowl industry were like, this isn't fair. You're trying to just get money out of us. It's a game to get more money out of us, because steel shot's going to be more expensive. Bismuth's going to be more. Tungsten's going to be more. And now, to this day, that's still kind of the mindset of like, no, I want to use lead shells because they're cheaper. And even like the discussion with the Boss shells, with the new target loads, people are like, lead is cheaper. I'm not doing, and lead's better. And lead has great performance attributes. There's a reason why people have used it for many years. And there's great bullets that are made of lead that we use for Nosler. I don't have much of a problem with using a lead bullet for big game. I really, really don't. Matter of fact, a lot of times I do. I'll use the E-tips. I obviously like the Nosler AccuBond and those bullets. And because, typically a rifle bullet's going to go through and through the animal, or I can cut out around where the bullet impacted, and I'm not going to be cooking lead inside the meat and that sort of thing, I don't have a problem with using lead bullets for that. I don't. So
It's crazy we have to defend eating lead.
yeah.
Like that's in its simplest form. That's what it comes down to.
Yeah, and I just think it's obvious to me that there's other choices out. If I have the choice, I would just simply go non-tox. And at the end of the day, I know that thing about the 6-shot. I know the studies, and I would rather not, even when I'm shooting target loads. I just think non-tox. I just rather go non-tox. Mm-hmm. But I'm not going to also fault people for like being obsessed with lead the way they are.
Yeah.
Because I get it, man. Like, listen, I'm very pro Second Amendment, obviously. It's not hard to figure out what side of the aisle I sit on when it comes to politics. It's like, we're Christian conservatives, like, we get it. I also don't like the idea of anyone telling us we can't use lead. I don't like that either. So it's like, I get it. Star Spangled Banner, yes. However, I would also say that you should probably have all the information, because we know lead is toxic, period.
Well, I think that's part of our stance too, typically on most issues is, yes, we tend to lean one way, but if there's just clear evidence that you can't argue with, then that's just the way it is.
Yeah, I mean, so that war is probably going to wage on. For me, the reason why we switched to Boss long before we worked with Boss was because I liked the idea of shooting the copper-plated bismuth for even small game. Jeff and I do a lot of squirrel hunting, a lot of rabbit hunting and stuff like that. It's like, I always find pellets. I'd rather not cook them with lead in them in the crock pot with the roast, like you were saying. I just think that's kind of the better idea.
That cooking segment we just did a couple weeks ago on the podcast and on the vlog, you take a couple really small segments of those squirrels we shot, and even with cutting up the meat and preparing it the way I did into little tiny chunks, yes, there was bits of bone, but like you found a pellet,
copper-plated bismuth, baby.
So it's like if you found one in a very small chunk, like it's gonna be throughout the animal. I would much rather that be non-toxic than lead.
Sometimes I eat copper-plated bismuth just cuz. Yeah, I'm fine.
Yeah, it's good for your teeth.
I start twitching. But yeah, so that was a battle that I kind of wanted to announce, and there's going to be more announcements coming from Boss that are very exciting. We're honored to work with them, a Michigan company with people that we care about and love. So it's been fun kind of helping them with their marketing initiatives and creating content for them. And thank you for listening to me talk about this load. Go check it out, bossshotshells.com, and it's the new Target load. Absolutely love it. Stand by it.